one last speaker before lunch, Martin James. He's the Business Development Executive for Didac, who are specialist training providers to the wood, furniture and merchanting sector. They provide work-based training or classroom and workshop-based training at Woodwise Academy on the banks of the Avon in Bristol. Didac also make extensive use of e-learning to support training and qualifications achievement. Martin has experience at the cutting edge of new ideas and their development. Martin, you're on.
I represent the sort of the private sector in training, and we're absolutely focused on the workplace. That's been our business model. The company was founded in 1997 by myself and my co-director John Gibson. We both had backgrounds in the furniture trade. At the time I was running Rye Machinery, one of the UK's biggest machinery manufacturers, and we were installing at that time CNC equipment, and we were finding there were skills gaps in installation of those problems in those machines. So we actually decided to do something about it, and we set up Didac as a subsidiary of Rye Machinery. But relatively soon afterwards, I left my post, and within 2 years, we had sort of purchased back Didac, and we were effectively up and running. Now, as a private training provider, we're delivering a lot of public funded training as well. We're subject to Ofsted, so we have very rigorous inspections. Like the colleges, we probably, it's an incredible number of inspections. We're a company of about 30 people. We had an Ofsted inspection in March last year. We had 6 inspectors for 4 days, and they went through every part of our business. They were a bit surprised when we put the timetable, which said you got to be at your hotel entrance at 7 o'clock in the morning, because they wanted a 9:30 start. But we said, no, you've got to drive 100 miles to get to one of your learner observations for your inspection report. So our model is very, very different to a college-based model. Having said that, we do have it's the Woodwise Academy. We opened it in 2009, and we were persuaded to move in that direction because of a local shortage or problem in the southwest area, and particularly Bristol. And in that facility, we teach the skills you see up there, in the main machine woodworking, bench skills, upholstery, CAD/CAM and CNC machining. And we hit a lot of sectors in the woodworking. We do extend well beyond the furniture trade. We cover all of the woodworking sector. So joinery, architectural woodwork, shop fitting. That's an inside view of our workshop yesterday. Somewhat, to anybody who's been there, it sort of somewhat understates it, because we are very well equipped. And one of the good things about being in the private sector, there's nobody that sits above John or I that puts pressure on our workshop space. And I guess in the past we have been woodworking machinery geeks, and we add more machinery every year, so our problem is actually space. But we're very keen not to lose some of the equipment on which we can do training, even if it's relatively rare we use it. So it does very much understate what we do at the Academy. Over the last 3 years, we've brought in £1.5 million of funding from the Skills Funding Agency for apprentice training in the last 3 years. In addition to that, we've also brought in approximately £300,000 from the Education Funding Agency for learners at the Woodwise Academy. That's relatively unusual for a private company to have a direct contract with the EFA, but it's been extremely helpful in moving the business forward. We focus in the woodworking and merchant sectors, and the key areas, the key drivers for our business is improving the safety, the capability and the productivity of the workforce. Now, I don't like talking about overly focusing on safety, because training in the industry should be so much more than that. It should be capability and productivity. But the reality is, and these are some of our numbers, that safety is a key driver for business in our business. So just to give you a flavour, so on the left-hand column of numbers is funded training, but we also have a very strong area in commercial training. And so inside the academy at the moment, we've got 31, or we had 31 people on course from August last year to July this year. And we had 5 private paying commercial individuals. In the furniture and wood-based, we had 81 people on programme, but in excess of 800 out in the workplace. Now that number might surprise some of you, but basically in woodworking machine training, we taught over 800 learners last year on commercial short courses. So those are fully funded by employers. And if you're going to get that sort of number, you've got to offer value for money. We also, in the funded area, that covers the whole of the woodworking sector. So there's a number of furniture makers in there. And about 30 of those, in the report it refers to older learners, perhaps where you can unpack an apprenticeship framework. Well, we've got about 30 learners in there for which they just did the NVQ only. So that is the practical side of training. So we do that regularly. So it's not as though it's unheard of. So we have 30 learners in there. The difference is going forwards, I doubt it's going to be funded. So of course that will have an impact on that. Professional development. Last year we had 246 apprentices in professional development programs, which are customer service, team leading, business administration, warehousing and management. That we focus into the Builders Merchants trade. We have a relationship with the Builders Merchants Federation. We brand it under the BMF apprenticeship scheme. It's a very successful scheme. So they support it with their regional managers, promote it to their members, and we supply the delivery side. So there could be some models for the furniture trade, but that's a very significant program with 246 learners. And we have a roll-on, roll-off system, so that's about 150 on program at any one time. At the moment, we have very low commercial uptake in that area, but we see that as a very significant growth area. Industrial training for us is in the area of slinger banksman, plant and equipment. Again, that's short courses, and as you can see, we've got a big number on there of people we're engaged with, and we're offering qualifications under the ITSAR and MPOR scheme. So it does touch on the furniture sector, but it's not a key area. And finally, the health and safety. No funded training in health and safety, or not on our portfolio anyway. We do train about 200 people a year, but we do a heck of a lot of consultancy. And we do work very closely with the HSE. We're always working on their new initiatives. And if any of your employees have an accident on woodworking machinery, we will probably be one of the first to hear about it, because we do advise the health and safety on machining techniques and use on a regular basis, regrettably. So the compliance area that I mentioned is in the main driven by the commercial wood-based and the industrial. But it's that area, on reading the report, I see big opportunities because there is even in our world, there is very little of our portfolio, or relatively small amount in our portfolio, that goes into the furniture trade. And I was particularly interested in the retail side of the report, because we do nothing in the retail side, but the expertise of our staff and some of the resources and the information we provide could do very well in the retail side. Interestingly, in the professional development, there are 3 new qualifications in that area. The tile merchants have a specialist tile merchanting qualification. The timber merchants have a specialist timber merchanting qualification. And there is a trade business services qualification for builders merchants. And all of those qualifications were devised by the market segments for their own segments. And Andy and his team and Lisa at the back, they've worked stoically on that. It's a very long haul, and but those qualifications are available, and they can be adapted to the furniture sector. There's no doubt about that. Our business model from the outset was we didn't want to become heavily dependent on funded. So we've kept it in the ratio of 60-40 or 40-60. In 2011, when we started with the Builders Merchants Federation, we went 60% in favour of the funded qualifications, but the commercial short courses and consultancy, they've grown very significantly. We've worked very hard to deliver or create the courses that meet the needs of industrial and employers, so that they're prepared to pay for them, and we've grown that significantly, and we've grown about threefold in about 4 years. From the start, and again, on the introduction, it was sort of from the training provider and the college perspective. I still feel part of the furniture industry. My roots were in the furniture industry, and the whole of my working life has been on the fringes as a supplier, either as machinery. I've probably been into 500 cabinet shops in America, the length and breadth of America. So I still feel very part of the industry. And we are plugging gaps, which has helped us grow. But it has been based on the work-based model, because it's very difficult. If you put your compasses on a map and you go from Bristol, where we are, to central London, and then you flip it into the southwest, you only get to 20 miles beyond Exeter. There's a hell of a long way to go. And one of the big challenges for colleges and training providers alike is getting out to the employers and the learners in their locations. And there are some hard to reach places out there. You can get there, but can you deliver training economically? And that's a big issue, and that's a big challenge. And I can guarantee if you weren't committed to the sector, you probably wouldn't set up a private training provider. We've developed short courses. We've also developed qualifications. Back in about 2003, we set up the Woodwise qualification, which is a City and Guild certificate of competence for operating woodworking machinery. So if you have a workshop with just a bandsaw, for example, you or your learner can get accredited to operate that bandsaw, or you can add any number of machines to that portfolio, and that's an accredited qualification by City and Guilds. It's not funded, you have to pay for it, but it is a short course. We've delivered apprenticeships since 1998, and it's always been the foundation of what we do. I've always had a fairly short-term expectation of where apprenticeships are going to go as a private training provider. Andy referred to all the changes, and you know what, we just don't know how it's going to end up this time next year, or the impact. But we've been through, since 98, we've probably been through 11 or 12 really big initiatives, and we've learned to just sit back, let them evolve, but carry on working out what the employers need for their training. And we've always found that what we're working on has broadly fitted in to their needs. So employer focus, tailored to their needs, is what we do. And as I mentioned earlier, we do roll-on, roll-off dates, so you're not constrained to a academic year. I put all trainer assessors are employed by Didac. That's actually quite crucial. I did try a model where we subcontracted. Doesn't work for me. You don't have the control of the quality, so we employ everybody. We make them fully mobile, and we really commit to those guys. And that's what we have to do. You know, the colleges are doing that in this sector as well. Qualifications and deliveries all in the workplace, individual learning plans to match the job role and the employer needs. I think Peter put location, location, location. I think I'm going to call it the four yours. We got your people, your premises, your equipment, and your needs. And that's very much our model. So, and there's no hiding place. When our trainer assessors go into your premises, there's no hiding place for them. It's very visible what we do. And it also keeps their CPD very high because they're working on your equipment, which we have to be broadly based on all types of equipment. Also, we use e-portfolios, which is under the old apprenticeship scheme, everybody collected paper evidence in a folder. We were very early adopters of the e-portfolio. We went overnight, we switched everybody into an e-portfolio. And that's how we capture the evidence of learning and how we monitor progression and how we monitor or record assessment. Remote support, email, telephone and e-portfolio. We do a lot. We make ourselves available to the learners and the employers. And one thing I should have put on there is we've developed, we call it our Savvy Centre, and that's our e-learning portfolio. And every learner within the company has access to that portfolio. So that's where all the course materials and instruction to develop knowledge is based. Our reach, we do a lot to train the trainer. So we know that training isn't necessarily an employer's first priority. And all employers, we will often train somebody within an employer's organisation to deliver that training. We're very pro of that, and we do a lot of that. Schools, colleges and universities, we train a lot of people in the workshops, FE and HE colleges. Ministry of Justice, they've got 13 fantastically equipped furniture factories, and we've done most of the training of their instructors in their furniture factories, and they're actually delivering our Woodwise qualification to the learners, to their inmates. They tried with the apprentice frameworks and the MVQs, but they found that their prison population was too mobile, which begged a follow-up question. But it's as they're going through the security, a sentence might be 12 months, out in 6, so you can't complete an MVQ. So they jumped onto the Woodwise qualification because it meant if somebody's got to leave, they can certificate them now on their achievement and help them hopefully get employment back into the sector. So we've done a lot of that. We also have quite a large international reach. In the last 18 months, we've had people in Colombia, Suriname, Ascension and St. Helena. Took 1 week to get to Ascension and St. Helena on two boats, but then he spent three weeks there doing training. Suriname, we had a complaint on the 3rd week because our trainer was fed up with eating chicken and rice. But in that sawmill installation, he improved the productivity of the whole place by 10%. So they got more than the cost of the training back within a very short space of time. And that's what we're trying to do, is not just deliver sort of a learning experience. We can actually make a big difference to an employer with what we do. We're never 100%, we do make mistakes, but hopefully we learn from them and we fix them. And we do engage with the Health and Safety Executive. When I first started in the machinery industry, they had a whole floor full of specialists in Luton. They now have 2. And they're not really hands-on and they keep moving around. So they do need support in our sector. And there is a wood interest group. So if anybody feels an interest in developing health and safety in the woodworking sector, new participants are always welcome. Growth, I see big opportunities. I mean, we've grown very significantly over the past 5 years. That's a broad indicator of our growth profile. On the green, the lower green box on the right is the academy, and that's really space and capacity constrained. But the big question for me is, what's the optimum size of an academy? Could we do one elsewhere in the country? I don't know. But we think what we've got is about right. It's about 700 square metres of workshop space, and so there are opportunities there. But on the work-based side, in a sense, we're capacity constrained by our ability to recruit good trainers and assessors. And we do jump in. If people come onto the job market, we do jump in. And we jumped in recently with 2 guys who became available. We didn't really have the need for them right now, but we've given them the time and the space to develop their experience. But that's what you got to do to make it happen. So there you go. That's our perspective.
So it's lunchtime. First of all, thank you to our morning speakers, Master, Pete Beale, Caroline Gascoigne, Carl Patterson, Richard Miller, Andy Chalice, Paul Stackhouse and Martin Jones. You've all made a big difference this morning. I'll leave you with 3 thoughts. First of all, there are new skills as well as old skills. So sewing, yes, but suddenly we're talking about apprenticeships and training in recycling, much more of the moment. We need to be preferred employers. We're competing for talent. There's a lot of other jobs out there right now. There's a declining number of people looking for jobs. It's our job to make sure that they want to come and join us. And that leads to the third point, which is that employers and trainers must engage with each other. They must work together. They must work hand in hand. I like that expression. I hope you've got some thoughts and questions. Please don't forget to pass those to Dami over lunchtime so that we can gather those together. And this is the plan. Lunch is served in the Arnold Moore room, which is the room on the far side of the hall there. Gather your stuff from there, a drink and something to eat, and then mingle. There's a great representation here from both industry and training. Please speak to each other, not just the people you know. You'll find a lot of talent and knowledge out there. And finally, we're a little behind, but we are not due to start again until 2:15. So you've got about 40 minutes, which should be plenty of time for lunch. The earlier we start, the sooner we'll finish. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much.